Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. حياكم الله مساكم الله بخير. So tonight بإذن الله تعالى it will be a lengthy topic. Inshallah, we're going to get it done. And as you know, this book is Usool, Sunnah, صح? It's the foundations of the Sunnah. What is the Sunnah in reference to here? Who remembers? Well done. Aqidah. Someone else said something else? The manhaj. Aqidah and manhaj. It's synonymous. You know, shay'an mutalaziman, they're inseparable. The aqidah, the creed, and the manhaj, the methodology. Two things that run side by side and they cannot necessarily be taken apart from. They're inseparable. Shay'an mutalaziman. They run side by side together. So today's topic, mawdu'una al-yawm, today's topic is al-qadr. خيره وشره. Yeah, Iman bil qadr خيره وشره. So write that down. Yeah, Al-Iman bil qadr خيره وشره. So belief in pre-decree, it's good and it's bad. We believe in it's good and it's bad. ومن السنة اللازمة التي من ترك منها خصلة. And from the prophetic traditions, that which is binding upon us to uphold. And if someone was to leave off this quality, لم يقبلها ويؤمن بها, meaning he wouldn't accept it and not believe in it. لم يكن من أهلها, he is not from its people. It's important this, you have to believe in it. You have to believe in it. Al-Iman bil-Qadr خيره وشره, believing in pre-decree, it's good and it's bad. Not just it's good and it's bad. وَالتَّصْدِيقُ بِالْأَحَادِيثِ فِيهِ, and all of the narrations pertaining to it, holding them to be true. وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهَا, and believing in it. لَا يُقَالْ لِمَا, it's not said why. وَلَا كَيْفْ, how. إِنَّمَا هُوَ التَّصْدِيقُ وَالْإِيمَانُ بِهَا, verily it is testifying and holding it to be true, belief in it. All of these narrations. ومن السنة اللازمة التي من ترك منها خصلة لم يقبلها ويؤمن بها لم يكن من أهلها. He goes on to say, انتبهوا بهذا. So pay attention to this. This is the first point. Yeah? From the binding prophetic traditions in which Ahlul Sunnah should hold on to, which if anyone left off part of it, not accepting it, and not believing in it, they're not from this people. Look at Imam Ahmed said. He said, if you don't believe in this, you're not from the people of Sunnah. It's important. So Shaykh Rabi' Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he goes on to say, لهذا هذه فقرة مهمة جدا. This is a very important paragraph. Imam Ahmed سيصف لنا أصولا من ترك شيئا منها فليس من أهل السنة. He's going to describe to us some of the principles, usul, things that we need to hold on to, that if somebody was to leave off, they're not from Ahlul Sunnah. يعني يخرج من دائرة السنة إلى البدعة. He leaves the circle of Sunnah and then he transitions to innovation, to the circle of innovation. تنبهوا لهذا. Pay attention to this. So we're going to make mention of what qadr is, pre-decree, and what is being alluded to here. So he goes on and says, وَمِنْ السُنَّةِ اللَّازِمَةِ الَّتِي تَرَكَ مِنْهَا خَصْلَةً, and from the binding prophetic traditions, that if anyone was to leave off يعني تركها أو معظمها فهذا هو بلاء. If they were to leave this off, or at least, the majority of it, لم يقبلها, and they did not accept it, يعني أباها, they were to reject it, ويؤمن بها لم يكن من أهلها. This is found in the text. As for the statement and not believing in it, he's not from his people. That person is not from the people of Sunnah. إذا لم يكن من أهل السنة هو من أهل البدع والضلال. If he's not from the people of Sunnah, then he's from the people of innovation and misguidance. I'm not saying, for example, here, let me just throw a ta'liq on that in commentary. I'm not saying if the person doesn't know any better and they haven't really understood Islam correctly, automatically they become from Ahlul Bid'ah. No, pay attention to this. Some people just don't know. He might have been raised a Muslim, but he never understood what Qadr is. He may have been fed doubts about Qadr, not to believe in it. We're not saying automatically that layman enters into the fold of Ahlul Bid'ah. Does that make sense? He just never knew. We're talking about people that reject it purposely, with doubts, and make inkar, scrutinize it. This is where we're going to. Does that make sense? Some people just don't know. You find people like that, at college and what have you. Yeah? If he's jahil, he doesn't even know, for example, Fatiha, leave this individual. Yeah. He's shown proofs and evidences. Then, if he exits from this very point and chooses to disbelieve in it or scrutinize it, then he's from Ahlul Bid'ah without any doubt. Because this is Aqidah. This is creed. This is belief now. This isn't something you can just play around with. This is what separates an individual from going paradise or hellfire. Yeah? Okay, so he goes on to say, وَيَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْرِفُونَ أَنَّ الْبِدْعَ تنقسم إلى الكبائر والصغائر وإلى الشرك وإلى الإلحاد وإلى البلاء. So basically bid'ah, it does in its essence divide up into major innovations, small innovations, and sometimes it leads, in most cases, to shirk, polytheism, paganism, ilhad, heresy, and bala. It can cause great affliction to our ummah. Yeah, as you know, the Christians are a great proof of that. Too many innovations within their religion cause them to lie about Allah. Because they spoke about Allah upon no knowledge. كما يقول ابن القيم رحمه الله البدعة مشتقة من الكفر وآيلة إليه والبدعة تقوم على الهوى والضلال. So bid'ah, innovation, derives from disbelief and leads to it. Innovation is built upon following desires, hawa, والضلال, misguidance. And then he brings the verse in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وَخَتَمَ عَلى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ وَجَعَلَ عَلى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً فَمَنْ يَهْدِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ اللَّهِ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Have you seen him who takes his desire as a Lord, as a deity, his own lust as a Lord and deity? And Allah, knowing this, as such, leaves him astray and seals his hearing. Yeah? He seals his hearing and his heart and his qalb. And he puts a cover on his sight, ghishawa. And who then will guide them after Allah? Will you not then remember? And in commentary of that very verse, Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Sa'di, he says, وَقَدْ سَدَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ أَبْوَابَ الْهِدَايَةِ وَفَتَحَ لَهُ أَبْوَابَ الْغَوَايَةِ. So, if we see here, ghishawa, the covering, he said Allah has closed the doors of guidance for this individual and opened up the doors of misguidance. This is the individual that follows his desire. So qadr is something mentioned in the Quran. وَكَانَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ قَدْرًا مَقْدُورًا وَكَانَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ قَدْرًا مَقْدُورًا. And the command of Allah, it is a determined decree. وَلَكِنْ لِيَقْضِيَ اللَّهُ أَمْرًا كَانَ مَفْعُولًا. But you met that Allah, might accomplish a matter already ordained in His knowledge. Qadr is mentioned in the Quran. وَخَلَقَ اللَّهُ عَفْوًا وَخَلَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَقَدَّرَهُ تَقْدِيرًا. And He has created everything and has measured it exactly according to its due measurements. This is what Qadr means. To determine, to give something its due measurement. It has a meaning. سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى. Praise your Lord. Al-A'la, the Most High. Yeah, is there anything higher than Allah? No. So don't let the Ash'ari come and say there's a makan higher than Allah. Because Allah says what? سَبِّحِ اسْمِ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى. So is there anything higher than Allah? No. Al-A'la here shows that there's nothing higher than Allah. You see? الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى. I'll come to you. Let me just finish the ayah. Apologies. So glorify the name of your Lord the Most High, who has created everything and then proportioned it. Yeah? And who measured the preordainments for everything, even to be blessed or wretched and then guided, and showed mankind the right way as well as the wrong path. I'm just going to go through all of these narrations, yeah? Alaikum salam wa barakatuh. So, just to somewhat put things into context, from the linguistic point of view, yeah, another lughawi, Raghib al-Asfahani, according to the report narrated from him by Ibn Hajar, the word qadr implies ability or power. The word qadr, what does it imply? Ability and power. Right, this is what qadr means. Ability and power. Yeah, quwwa, or qudra, or quwwa. And the object of ability which exists in the knowledge of Allah. Fath al-Bari, this is mentioned. Allah, the Almighty, the Absolute, has qudra, and His power is not lacking in any way whatsoever. When you take it back to the Christians now, they believe Allah, He didn't have power in certain things. He was overcome by the creation. You see what's happening here? Their version of Allah, or a particular essence as they somewhat do with Allah, was weaker than the creation. But obviously Allah is free from this. So, we have, may He be blessed and exalted, the names Al-Qadir, the able, Al-Qadir, the all-powerful, Al-Muqtadir. You know this word? Omnipotent. Omnipotent. Yeah? Al-Qadir, the able, Al-Qadir, the all-powerful, Wal-Muqtadir, the omnipotent. Able to do everything. And this goes back to Qudra, ability. Power is one of His attributes. So this is just a linguistic thing. So Al-Qadir is the active participle. It's linguistics, the active participle. That means it's of the verb qadara yaqdiru. For example, if I say to you, Masmuk, Muhammad, Ahmad, taqdiru an tu'tiyani al-kitab. Do you have the ability to give me the book? Yeah? Qadr comes from the ability as well. You have the ability to give the book. Naam, ana aqdiru. I have the ability to do. That's what it means. Yeah? So it goes back to al-qadir. So qadara yaqdiru, al-qadir is a more intensive form, meaning the one who does what he wants. It's more intensive in that regard. In accordance with his wisdom. This is a different aspect. Because Allah does things in accordance to His wisdom. Whereas the Christians and other religions, they sometimes remove wisdom from His actions. Yeah? Alright, in accordance with wisdom, no more and no less. Therefore, no one deserves to be described with the name except Allah. Bala innahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. Surely He is able to do all things. That fit His majestic majesty. Well done. Yeah, so we don't say things about Allah that He could, wayadu billah, do this and do that. We don't speak about Allah with that which goes against His majestic majesty. Yeah? Al-Muqtadir. What does Al-Muqtadir mean in translation? The omnipotent. The omnipotent, able to do all. As Allah says in the Quran, في مقعد صدق مليك مقتدر. In a seat of truth, paradise near the omnipotent King of the Most High. See, Qadr is mentioned in many different verses in the Quran. Yeah? And then he goes on to say, basically, a muqtadir is the active participle from iqtadara. So if those that are studying Arabic, iqtadara, yaqtadiru, muqtadir. Yeah? And it's more intensive in meaning than qadir. The meaning's a bit more intensive. It gives more. For example, not literally like this, but you have ju'. Who knows what ju' means? Hunger. And a jo'an means I'm very hungry. Very hungry. On the wazn, fa'lan means the utmost of that very thing. Yeah? You have ju', hunger. Ana ja'i, I'm hungry. And a jo'an, I'm very hungry. Like Rahman, the most merciful. Yeah? So when you understand the scales, then you'll start realizing the meaning behind these things. So hence, those who deny qadr of Allah do not accept the power of Allah. Ibn Taymiyyah said, whoever does not accept the opinion of the Salaf does not believe that Allah has power or He is able. Like the Jahmiyyah and those who follow them, and the Mu'tazila. Both those who accept the idea of qadr, but say that it means that a man is compelled by qadr to do what he does. And those who reject the idea of qadr altogether, the essence of opinion is that Allah is not able and that He is not, the sovereign king. طيب. And finishing off in that very point there, the definitive proof of the text of Al-Quran and Sunnah and the ijma' of the Sahaba was ijma', consensus. And the prominent figures among the earlier and later generations overwhelmingly support one another to prove that the qadr of Allah is such. فقال Ibn Hajar, the opinion of all of the Salaf is that all things happen by the decree of Allah. This is Fath al-Bari. And then he mentions in the Quran, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِنْدَهُ خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدْرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. And there is not a thing, but with us are the treasures of it. The treasures. خَزَائِنُهُ. And we do not send it down except in a known measure. بِقَدْرٍ مَعْلُومٍ. So he goes on to say, these are the three things now. This is important to write down for qadr, yeah? About Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. This is not in the actual book, but this is important to know as a startup. وَالْمُرَادَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى عَلِمَ مَقَادِيرَ الْأَشْيَاءِ. The intent behind this, behind qadr, is that Allah knows all things. وَأَزْمَانَهَا قَبْلَ إِيجَادِهَا. In all times, before it came to be, was brought into existence. ثم أوجد ما سبق في علمه أنه يوجد فكل محدث صادر عن علمه وقدرته وإرادته. This is the important part now. It's all important, but this is the main part. Then He creates that which He already knows will happen. Hence, everything happens by these three things. Everything happens by these three things. It stems from His ilm, knowledge. Qudra. What's qudra? Power, ability. Wa iradatihi. And His will. Those three things are connected to qadr. When He does things, min ilmihi wa qudratihi wa iradatihi. From His knowledge, qudra, power, ability. Yeah, same thing, similar. Wa iradatihi. His will. Yeah? طيب, inshallah. Moving on. So, who are the Qadariyah? The Qadariyah are a deviated sect. They are a deviated sect that came about at the time of the Sahaba. The great Imam Abu Thawr al-Ibrahim bin Khalid, who died 240 Hijri. He was a faqih, as reported by Imam al-Lakai. He was asked, who are the Qadariyah? سأله من هو or من هم القدرية? Who are the Qadariyah? He said about them, those who say Allah did not create the actions of the servants. There are those that say Allah did not create the actions of the servants. And they also go to say, and Allah did not decree the acts, meaning the af'al of acts of isyan. He did not create the actions of disobedience too. And Allah did not decree this. That's what they're saying. Allah did not decree the actions of the servants. Even the isyan, the disobedience. For the ibad did not create the acts of isyan, disobedience. This is what they believe, the Qadariyah. So the bid'ah of al-qadr, in this regard, comprises of two things, two matters. Rejection of Allah's prior knowledge. They reject this, that Allah knew something beforehand. They say Allah came to know of it when it came into action. This is wrong. That's the first thing. Rejection of Allah's prior knowledge of events. The second, they claim that the abd, the servant, they claim that the abd, the servant, is the one who brings about his own actions. This is what they believe. These are two things. That the abd, the servant of Allah, he's the one that brings his own actions into play. Yeah? Independently, istiqlaliyan. Yeah? They said the abd independently is the one doing it. Outside the scope of Allah. So they're saying that the abd, he's doing this beyond Allah's scope, beyond Allah's knowing of this and will and what have you. And likewise outside of his power and creative ability. Yeah? But Allah refuted this. Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. Allah created you and what you do. This is the refutation of the Qadariyah. Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. Allah created you and that which you do. The actions are also created. He said that. And they resemble the Qadariyah, the Majus. Who knows the Majus? The fire worshippers. Yes. The Majus are the fire worshippers. The Majus. The fire worshippers who believed i'tiqadan bi ilahayn. They believed in two deities. Listen to this. Why? They believed in a khaliq for good. They believe in a khaliq for good, a creator of good, and a khaliq for shar, for bad, from being within the domain of Allah's all-encompassing power due to them believing Allah cannot create evil. They just don't believe Allah created evil. Obviously, we know Allah creates evil. As a test, it has its wisdom. Taib, inshallah. So we'll carry on. That was just, some extra additional notes, but we'll try to speed it up now. He goes on to say, "Na'udhu billah min ittiba' al-hawa." So we seek refuge in Allah from following our desires. ولهذا سمى أهل السنة أهل البدعة بأهل الهوى بأهل الأهواء. That's why أهل السنة called the people of innovation أهل الأهواء, the people of desires. لأنهم خالفوا دين الله واتبعوا أهواءهم, because he opposed the religion of Allah and they followed their desires. Remember, as Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, أهل البدعة يعتقدون ثم يستدلون. They believe something, then they go looking for the evidences. أهل السنة are the opposite. Yeah? As Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah used to mention. استدل ثم اعتقد. Seek the proof, then believe. ولا تعتقد ثم تستدل فتضل. So, seek the evidence, then believe. But don't believe, then seek the evidence, then going astray. فتضل. وهؤلاء مثل الخوارج والروافض ومعتزل وجهمية ومرجئة وصوفية والحلولية أهل وحدة الوجود عباد القبور. All these individuals, all of these individuals, Murji'ah, Rawafid, as you mentioned, أو ما شاكل ذلك, anyone like that, كل هذه بدعة وضلالات مخالفة لنصوص الكتاب والسنة. All of this is in opposition to the Book of Allah and the correct, authentic, sound text. مخالفة لأصول الإسلام or أصول السنة وقواعدها. This is in opposition to the traditions. It's in opposition to the traditions and the principles. Yeah. أولها قال الإيمان بالقدر. So the first thing he goes on to say, going back to the text, أولها الإيمان بالقدر, believing, holding it to be true, قدر. فالذي لا يؤمن بالقدر ليس من أهل السنة. So the one that does not believe in the qadr, he's not from أهل السنة. هذا ترك خصلة عظيمة. This individual, he's left off a great trait from the traditions of the messenger. ولا أصلا عظيما من أصول السنة الإيمان بالقدر ركن من أركان الإيمان. So he's left off a great foundation from the very principles of the sunnah, believing in al-qadr. Qadr meaning the pre-decree. It's a rukn min arkan al-iman. It's a pillar from the pillars of, yes, pillars of faith. دل على ذلك كتاب الله وسنة الرسول, and this is indicative by way of the Book of Allah and that which the messenger has come with. وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين, and everything we have put and recorded in a clear book, in a record. وكل حادث يحدث وكل عين قد علمه الله وسجله في اللوح المحفوظ. وهذا من أدلة القدر إن كل شيء خلقناه بقدر. So he goes on to say every situation that occurs, hadith, Allah has complete knowledge of it and He has recorded it in a lawh al-mahfuz. As he brings the ayah, earlier we have created all things with divine preordainments. Divine preordainments. All things before the creation, as written in the book of decree. وجبريل عليه الصلاة والسلام أرسله الله تبارك وتعالى إلى محمد ليقرره في هذا اللقاء أصول الدين وأركانه التي يبني عليها ويشهد عليها. سأله عن الإسلام. So Allah sent Jibreel to Muhammad عليه الصلاة والسلام to affirm the pillars and fundamentals which the religion is built upon. And he asked him about Islam, Iman and Ihsan. فقال الإسلام أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت. As you all know, and Islam is to bear witness that there's no deity worthy of worship except Allah, and then we have to accept and testify that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and to uphold the prayer and give the charity and to fast Ramadan and to make pilgrimage. He goes and says, Mal Iman, what is Iman? قال أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. So what's Iman? He says, and to believe in who? Allah. And then the angels, صح? And then the books, وكتبه ورسله, and his messengers. وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. And to believe in the pre-decree, it's good and it's bad. That's why the Sunnah, it does bring tafsil, it brings detail. أن تؤمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله وتؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره واليوم الآخر. جزاك الله خير. Is it in your book, that one? It's not in your book, is it? You don't think it's mentioned in that hadith, but you're right, you're not incorrect in that. So he goes on, فالأركان الخمسة غير القدر المذكورة القدر مذكور في آيات كما سبق وقد تسرد الأصول الإيمان في عدد من الآيات. So he goes on to say also many verses the 5 pillars of Iman are mentioned as well as other than divine decree. By it, as Allah goes on to say, آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون. So the messenger believes in that which has come down to him. And likewise they believe in the Lord and the mu'minun, the believers. كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. Yes, so the messenger believes in what has been sent down to him from his Lord. And so do the believers. Each one believes in Allah, His angels, His books, and His messengers. And we make no distinction between one another of His messengers. And they say we hear and we obey and we seek your forgiveness, our Lord, and to you is the return. The mu'minun here, who are they? Sahaba. So they believe in Allah as well. They're not kuffar, as the Rawafid claim. Yeah? It's not. It says غير مذكور. He says not. But he goes on to say, look at the other ayat that point to it. Yeah? فيساق أحيانا القدر في النصوص مستقلة. So he goes on to say, sometimes the divine decree is mentioned in separate, independent texts. This is something very important to know. And these fundamentals are also mentioned in one context, but all of them are indicated by the book and the Sunnah of the Messenger, as found in the hadith of Jibreel, the hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud. And if Allah wills, we will mention other proofs dealing with the divine decree in another point in time. وَمِنَ الْأُصُولِ الَّتِي مَنْ تَرَكَ مِنْهَا خَصْلًا. And from the binding prophetic traditions, that if anyone was to leave off, الْإِيمَانُ بِالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ, believing in Iman, well, having Iman in the Qadr, the pre-decree, it's good and it's bad. فَعَلَى الْمُؤْمِنَ أَنْ يُؤْمِنَ بِأَنَّ الْقَدْرَ كُلُّهُ خَيْرُهُ وَشَرُّهُ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. So the believer, he has to believe that Qadr, the good and the bad, is from Allah تبارك وتعالى. وقد تكلم شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله في الواسطية وغيرها عن القدر وأنه درجات. So he spoke about this, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. It's of levels. I'm going to go into that inshallah in his book Wasatiyah. And this is just lightly touching upon it. الدرجة الأولى, the first level. الدرجة الأولى. It's nothing complicated, just know this. It just sounds like that sometimes. The first level. علم الله المحيط بكل شيء. علم الله بعلمه القديم الأزلي كل شيء من مخلوقاته صغيره وكبيره دقيقه وجليله. Simple. To believe Allah, His knowledge encompasses all things. And Allah knew completely about all of the affairs in His creation, great and small. For indeed Allah's knowledge is not preceded by ignorance. Once again, this is a refutation showing that Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala is free from tanaqqus wa uyub. He doesn't have to see something to happen, then know if it's coming. Like, you know, Nasara, what they claim about Allah, that He didn't know certain things, that He was deficient on certain things. Allah knew of that before it came to be. ثم سجل ذلك في كتاب المحفوظ قال الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام قدر الله مقادير كل شيء قبل أن يخلق السماوات والأرض ب50 ألف سنة. Allah recorded that in a protected book, the Prophet said Allah decreed the details. Allah decreed the details of everything. He decreed the details of everything before He created the heavens and earth by 50,000 years. ب50 ألف سنة. وقال أول ما خلق الله القلم فقال له. So أول ما خلق الله القلم, the first thing that Allah created was the qalam. There's some kalam about this. There's some speech from the ulama about this. فقال له اكتب. It was said to the pen, write. وقال ما أكتب. It was then said, what shall I write? قال اكتب ما يكون وما هو كاهن إلى قيام الساعة. Write that which is going to happen up until the establishment of the hour. So some say, we did this talk with Sheikh Abu Ayyad ta'ala like 10 years ago, subhanAllah. So, have you heard this before? No. The first thing Allah created. Yeah.
In the book it says that the first thing that's created was the throne and then
the arsh, yeah, then the pen. Yeah. Because yes, the water's by the arsh. Yeah. But some say that that's from this creation. So it's not to negate that Allah possibly might have had other creations before this creation. Does that make sense? So there may have been, and we cannot negate this, there might have been other creations before us, as Sheikh Saleh al-Sheikh mentioned, I believe it is. There may have been. You can't say there is no creation before us. He's always been a creator. So from this creation, okay. But we cannot negate there might have been other creations before this. Obviously, this is a lengthy topic, but if you heard about it, then you can go back to the lecture, inshallah, by Abu Ayyad, bi'ithnillah. Yeah, you can't negate it. You can't negate that. You can't say Allah never created anything before us. You can't negate that. You have to say that it's a possibility. Yeah? Wallahu a'lam. فكتب الله تبارك وتعالى كل معلومات التي علمها بعلمه الشامل المحيط. So Allah created or wrote down everything that's going to happen from the information he knew with his vast, all-encompassing knowledge. علم المحيط. في اللوح المحفوظ. Yeah? In the لوح المحفوظ. وعنده مفاتح الغيب لا يعلمها إلا هو ويعلم ما في البر والبحر وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها ولا حبة في ظلمات الأرض ولا رطب ولا يابس إلا في كتاب مبين. It's a serious ayah. SubhanAllah. And indeed with him are the keys of the unseen. مفاتيح الغيب. None knows them but he. And he knows whatever there is, placed on the earth. That which is in the earth, he knows all of this. And in the sea, and not a leaf falls, but he knows it. And there's not a grain in the darkness of the earth, nor anything first, or fresh or dry, but is written in a clear record. He knows all of this. Not a leaf falls, except that he knows it. There's not a grain in the darkness of the earth, nor anything fresh or dry, but is written in a clear record. And then he brings the ayah, يا بني إنها إن تكن مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن من صخرة. عفوا. يا بني إنها إن تكن مثقال حبة من خردل فتكن في صخرة أو في السماوات أو في الأرض يأتي بها الله. Oh my son, in Surah Al-Luqman, if it be anything equal to the weight of a grain of a mustard seed, and thought it be in a rock or in the heavens or in the earth, Allah will bring it forth. Verily Allah is subtle in bringing out the grain, or that grain, well aware of its place. Allah has knowledge of all things. Allah alim bi kulli shay. وَدَوْنَ هَذِهِ الْأَشْيَاء كُلَّهَا فِي اللَّوْحِ الْمَحْفُوظِ. So Allah has knowledge of all things, and everything was written down in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. ثم الدرجة الثانية, the second level, الدرجة الثانية. وهي الإيمان بمشيئة الله, and it's to believe in the will of Allah. هي الإيمان بمشيئة الله العامة الشاملة لكل الأشياء وكل المرادات التي يشاؤها سبحانه وتعالى. To believe in Allah, His all-encompassing will for everything that He desires to be. Also to believe in His ability with which He creates everything. And there's nothing in existence or non-existence. And he goes on to say, فَمَا مِن مَعْدُومٍ أَوْ مَوْجُودٍ سَابِقًا أَوْ لَاحِقًا صَغِيرًا أَوْ كَبِيرًا قَوْلًا أَوْ فِعْلًا حَرَكَةً سُكُونًا لَا تَحْصُلْ إِلَّا بِمَشِيئَةِ اللَّهِ. There's nothing in existence or non-existence, movement or stillness, big or small, statement or action, except that it occurs all by the will of Allah. ولا توجد إلا بخلق الله وإيجاده إياها بمشيئة وقدرته التي لا يعجزها شيء. And it does not except, happen by Allah's will, and Allah created it, bringing it to be with His will and His ability with which He is able to do all things. Obviously, it's quite lengthy, and there has been separate rasail, separate treatises on Qadr that have been written by the Mashaykh to break it down. Yeah. وَمَعَ ذَلِكَ أَرْسَلَ اللَّهُ الرُّسُلَ. And upon that, Allah sent the Rusul, the messengers. وَأَنزَلَ الْكُتُبِ, and He sent down the books. يكلف العباد بأوامره والنواهي وأقائد وعبادات. And he puts to trial his servants by way of his awamir, his commands, والنواهي, and his prohibitions, وأقائد, and the beliefs, وعبادات, and likewise the forms of worship that one should adhere to, وما شاكل ذلك, and everything connected to that. فالمطيع يطيع باختياره وإرادته. Yeah? As for the obedient one, he is inshallah obedient to Allah, but he has the choice and the desire to be obedient. ومع ذلك لا ينافي مشيئة الله وقدرته سبحانه وتعالى. So as for the obedient one, he is obedient out of his choice. You have the choice to be obedient or disobedient. So you can go to the shop right now and get a drink. You're not being forced to. Yeah? So don't say, oh, the Qadr caused me to be like this. No, you have the choice to go out and remove whatever hardship you're facing, except in some cases. For example, you're going up the stairs and you trip. Did you mean to trip? No. It's just a naqas in your ability. It doesn't mean that you meant to do it. Sometimes Allah causes you to forget yourself. No doubt. In a sense where it's to let you know that you're not above all things. Yeah? So he goes on to say, who remembers what ta'ah is? Obedience. Islamically speaking. What's ta'ah? Yeah. Definition. Do you remember? How? How do we define ta'ah? Well done. Imtithalu awamirihi washtinabu nawahi. It's observing the commands of Allah and staying away from his prohibitions. Jazakumullah khair. That's why the famous poet, what did he say? لو كان حبك صادقا لا أطعته إن المحب لمن يحب مطيع. If your love was a truthful one, verily you would have obeyed the one that you're in love with. Yeah? فمن أطاع وسلك السبيل الرسل الكرام فجزاؤه الجنة. So whoever observes ta'ah and is obedient, then he has traversed the path of the noble and generous messengers. فجزاؤه الجنة. His reward will be paradise, inshaAllah. ومن أطاع الرسل, whosoever disobeys the messengers. Notice how he said الرسل, because different nations came beforehand and their job was to obey the messenger at their time. So don't come to me and say that, oh, I have to obey a previous legislation that's been abrogated. No, you obey Muhammad, because we're from Ummah to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. We're Ummah Muhammadiyya. We're Ummah Muhammadiyya. وَكَذَّبَهُمْ وَخَالَفَهُمْ حُسِبَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. And he denies them and he opposes them. They will be accounted for in that regard. And then we're going to go on to, you don't need to read too much of the Arabic. He'll be held accountable in that regard and rewarded according to his level. And if his opposition reaches the level of disbelief, then he will remain in the hellfire forever. And if his opposition is in the form of major sins and other than disbelief, then he is under the will of Allah. هو تحت مشيئة الله. So a person that's صاحب al-kaba'ir, he dies upon this. We don't say for sure he's in the hellfire. We say he is تحت مشيئة الله. تحت مشيئة الله. He's under the will of Allah. Inshallah, غفره وإنشاءالله عذبه. This is what has come in some other previous texts. Allah has the ability to forgive him or punish him. We don't say like the Khawarij say, he will be punished. Allah can choose to forgive a major sinner. Likewise, the prostitute woman that fed a thirsty dog. This is a refutation upon the Khawarij, because she entered paradise by way of that. I remember doing this in Shaykh al-Nas Faqihi not so long, 2013. This is a refutation upon the Khawarij, because Allah forgave her and she was a major sinner. You see it? And then he goes on to say, if Allah wills and pardons him, and if Allah wills, he can punish him. For shahid, and the point of benefit here, أن الإيمان بالقدر خيره وشره لا ينافي القيام النصوص بالشرائع. So basically, believing in al-qadr, pre-decree, it's good and it's bad, it doesn't negate, or establish or oppose carrying out the Islamic legislation. Don't say, oh, I was destined to be a sinner. I was destined to be a kafir, even though I can see that Islam is the truth. You can make the choice right now to become a Muslim or choose to obey Allah or disobey Allah. The same way you went to the shop and got your Coca-Cola. You see? You make the choice. Some people play with the qadr. Oh, it's not fair, Oh, I'm just going to rob so-and-so. It was destined. All right, I'm going to arrest you and put you in prison for 10 years now. You don't accept that part of the qadr, do you? You see? They play with the qadr. Now, you have the ability. You have free will. But Allah allowing you to do so. Does that make sense? وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. And you can never will, except if Allah allows you to will. Yeah? Shall I finish? Let me finish this first, inshallah, yeah? And that's why he brings the hadith. This hadith is important now. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, اعملوا ما شئتم فكل ميسر لما خلق له. اعملوا ما شئتم فكل ميسر لما خلق له. So basically, the Prophet ﷺ is saying here, work righteousness for everybody for that which they were created for, will have that facilitated for them. It will be made easy for you. Yeah? It will be made easy for you, meaning work righteousness in terms of good deeds. Yeah? اعملوا ما شئتم فكل ميسر لما خلق له. So work righteousness, deeds, for everybody, for that which they do, it will be made easy for them. It will be facilitated for them. Yeah? وقد سأله بعض الناس فيهم العمل اليوم أفيهم جفت به الأقلام وجرت به المقادير أم الأمر مستأنف قال بل فيها وفيما فيه جفت الأقلام وجرت به المقادير. So some people ask the messenger about doing deeds and whether the deeds you perform are based on which is written by the pen, decreed by Allah, or is it different from that? They said, "O Allah's messenger, shall we not depend upon what has been written for us and give up deeds?" So they said, should we not just, depend on what's been written for us and give up? No, he never said this. He said, اعملوا فكل ميسر لما خلق له. Work righteousness for everybody, for that which they were created for, will have it facilitated for them, meaning it will be made easy for you. You can choose to pray 2 rak'ah now, sah? You can choose to fast. You can choose to give charity, if you got the money, that is. Yeah? But you can still, even al-ibtisam fi wajh al-akhiq, smiling in your brother's faces, sadaqah. Yeah? So you can choose to work righteousness. Don't say, I'm wretched, I'm born to be evil. And then when he meets another tyrant and president, all right, cool, I don't want it no more. You see, they play with the qadr. Yeah? And Ibn Taymiyyah refutes these people. You know what he says? Okay, so why have we got courts then? Courts are there to establish the rulings on people that do bad. If qadr and we were compelled to do our actions, why would we have courts? Why would we have a mahkamah? Because he could say, oh, Allah made me do this. That's not the case. The court's been there, obviously, to establish the, laws of retribution, to give back what you owe, or, if it be loan or debt or theft or whatever it may be, it's been there to, establish. The person could easily say, I was made and compelled to do that. No. فأهل السعادة يسيرون لعمل أهل السعادة وأهل الشقاوة يسيرون لعمل أهل الشقاوة. So the people that have, attained happiness, we've made for them to do the actions of the people of happiness, people of joy. And likewise, the people of misery, they will, do the actions of the people of sadness and wretchedness. Yeah? وقول اعملوا يعني اعملوا بشرائع الله. So the understanding behind this hadith, اعملوا, when Allah command, what type of command here? It's اعملوا, it's fi'l amr, it's a command from Allah, or the Messenger ﷺ, to say work righteousness in accordance with the shara'i', in accordance with the, Islamic ways of carrying out ibadah. وَأَعْمَلُوا بِمَا جَاءَتْ بِهِ الرُّسُلُ وَأَعْطِئُوا الرُّسُلُ. And that which the messengers have effectively come with, you obey them in that. لأن الله أعطاك اختيار. Allah has given you choice. وأعطاك قدرة, and He's given you ability. وأعطاك عقلا تميز به بين الحق, and He's given you the intellect to distinguish between truth والباطل and falsehood. والهدى والضلال, and likewise guidance and misguidance. والطاعة والمعصية, and obedience and disobedience. والله يحاسب. نعم. والله يحاسبك على ما أعطاك من هذه الألالات. So basically, Allah will account you in regards to what He's given you from these tools that He's bestowed upon us. وهذه الأدوات التي تميزت بها عن الحيوانات والجمادات, وهي مناط المسؤولية أمام الله تبارك وتعالى, وعليها يترتب الجزاء سواء كان إكراما أو إهانة. So these devices which we've been given that distinguish you from animals and inanimate objects, because of this you will be questioned and held responsible in front of Allah. All of us, myself, the blessed and the Most High, all of this leading to either a reward or a punishment, honor or being debased and humiliated. وَالتَّصْدِيقُ, Allah save us from that and make us from the people of Jannah. Ameen. وَالتَّصْدِيقُ بِالْأَحَادِيثِ فِي الْقَدَرِ, and holding the narrations of Qadr to be true. من الأحاديث التي ذكرناها مثل حديث جبريل أيضا أن تؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره. So likewise the hadith of Jibreel عليه الصلاة والسلام, and to believe in the pre-decree, it's good and it's bad. يعني أن تؤمن بالقدر خيره وشره, هذا في التقدير العام الذي مرجعه علم الله الشامل السابق, ومرجعه ما كتبه الله تبارك وتعالى في اللوح المحفوظ. So to believe in the divine decree, the good and the bad of it, this relates to the general divine decree which refers back to Allah, His all-encompassing knowledge. And it coincides with what Allah wrote in His Lawh al-Mahfuz. نعم. من حديث ابن مسعود في التقدير العمري, عمر الإنسان في ابن مسعود. So he goes on to mention also the hadith of Ibn Mas'ud which refers to the life decree. إن أحدكم يجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة. Yeah, so as it's mentioned in this narration, this hadith narrated by Ibn Mas'ud, the messenger, the truthful and the believed, he said, each one of you is collected in the womb of his mum. Yeah, each one of you is collected in the womb of his mum for 40 days. And then it turns into a clot for an equal period. And then turns into a piece of flesh for a similar period, 40 days. ثم يرسل إليه الملك. Then the Malik is sent to him. فيؤمر بأربع كلمات. And he's commanded basically with 4 things. Or, only 4 things for him to write. بكتب رزقه. What's written for him is his rizq. وأجله وعمله والشقي أو سعيد. So his age will be written and his actions, and whether he will be wretched or happy, either to be from the people of Jannah or the people of paradise, the people of paradise or the people of hellfire. He sent to him. You can't see him, yeah, the Malik, yeah. We can't see that angel, yeah. It's sent to him, yeah. So yes, the angel, Jazakallah khair. So he goes on to say, this is called بالتقدير العمري. That particular hadith there, that type of qadr mentioned, we call it التقدير عمري, the life decree. هناك تقرير أو هناك تقدير سنوي, يعني ليلة القدر. تقدير سنوي. We have a yearly decree. يعني ليلة القدر, the night of power, yeah? ليلة القدر. كما قال تبارك وتعالى إنا أنزلناه في ليلة مباركة إنا كنا منذرين فيها يفرق كل أمر حكيم. And we sent it down, the Quran, on a blessed night. Verily we are ever warning mankind that our torment will reach those who disbelieve in Tawheed. Therein that night is decreed every matter of ordainments. فيكتب فيها الله مقادير ما يجري على العباد من أعمال الصالحة والسيئات ومصائب وما شاكل ذلك. So in that night, Allah writes down that which will occur to the slaves from righteous and evil deeds, trials and tribulations, and other matters similar to this. هذا يسمى التقدير السنوي. هذا يسمى تقدير سنوي. This is called the yearly decree. الذي يقدره الله في هذه الليلة. That which Allah decrees upon that night. ثم هناك تقدير يومي وهو ما يفعله العباد ويكتبه عليهم الملائكة يوما فيوم. In addition to this, these previous types of divine decree, there is a daily decree. Yeah, تقدير يومي, a daily decree. And it refers to what the slaves do daily and what the angels write about them day by day. قال والإيمان بها بالنصوص, and it is said to believe in these narrations, to have faith and hold them to be truthful. لا يقال لما, it's not said why. لما فعل الله كذا, why did Allah do this? ولما قدر كذا, why did he decree this? ولما أمر بكذا, why did he command with this? ولما نهى عن هذا, and why did he prohibit this? It's not said, this is not said for a true Muslim. قال لا يقال لما, and it said why, meaning it's not to be said why. ولا كيف, and how. إنما هو الإيمان والاستسلام والتسليم لأن هذه التساؤلات قد تكون ناشئة عن اعتراضات على الله تبارك وتعالى على قدره على شرعه على أمره ونهيه. So he goes and says it's not to be said why or how, rather it's only upon us to believe and submit and feel at ease with the decree, because it may be the case that these questions derive from i'tiradat, opposing Allah's divine universal way, His divine decree, His legislation, and His command and prohibition. And we can see that in the creation, people that go against the commands of Allah, their societies are teared up, terrible. Sometimes when you look at particular countries, it's like an individual that's got like a really bad intestine and dying heart, but you can't see that. So what they do, they put this magnificent tuxedo over him to make him look as if like he's doing well, but inside he's dying. And that's what you find in a lot of Western countries. A lot of them are dying at heart. First one being, who can think of it? Suicide. These things are high in a lot of Western countries. Why? But yet they're so-called, quote-unquote, civilized. They go against the commands of Allah. They allow all sorts of things. From them, obviously, is shirk, which is the most important affair. But they also go against so many things. From them being the basic dealings of how you deal with your people. Giving to the poor. From the most basics of things. Immoral acts. These things corrupt society. Sometimes you'll be like, it's just a bit of fun. All right, carry on with this fun. See how it is in 100 years. See, there's hikmah behind Allah commanding that certain things be left off. Why? Because, certain deeds, certain forms of sin, they don't have a direct, immediate effect. For example, maybe the act of sodomy. It doesn't have a direct, immediate effect. But over time, as we know from the Sunnah informs us, diseases and great trials, and it earns the anger of Allah. So over time, certain deeds, not just sodomy, but other things like riba and what have you, riba being usury, it can also lead to slavery. I remember Abu Kenzah Jamal mentioned this, that it can lead to slavery because you can't pay off the debt. So what happens? You have nothing else to give but yourself. So you become enslaved to a company, or you become enslaved to a people, because you can no longer pay back that which you owe. Does that make sense? That's why interest is forbidden in Islam, because it enslaves the person. Yeah? To the best of our ability, obviously we stay away from it. But, this is why in many countries they should stay away from it, because it enslaves the poor. You can never ever get out of this. Yeah? Except if, Allah permits it and, there's forgiveness. But generally speaking, it's very difficult. So he goes on to say, it's not upon you except to submit, especially with this matter of divine decree. Because it has, as they say, the secret of Allah, sirrullah, the blessed and most high. That which you know of it, praise Allah, and that which you have no knowledge about it, it's incumbent upon you to submit. Yeah, la bud min taslim. La taqul lima, do not say why. Wala kayf, nor how. إنما هو التصديق والإيمان بها هذا الواجب على المسلم. So don't just say, why and how and what have you. إنما هو التصديق, is holding it to be true. والإيمان بها, and likewise believing in it. هذا هو الواجب للمسلم. That's an obligation upon the Muslim. وهذا مقتضى شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله. أنك مستسلم لله فيما يأمر به وينهى عنه ويشرعه وفيما يقدر عليك من خير وشر. So it's a prerequisite. Yeah, it's upon you, this declaration of faith, the shahada. No one has the right to be worshipped except Allah, and that Muhammad is the final and last messenger. And this entails that you have surrendered to Allah, istislam lillah, in that which He commands you with, prohibits, legislates, and also in that which He decrees upon you, whether good or bad. ونكتفي بهذا القدر وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. That's all for tonight's lesson, al-iman bil-qadr khayrihi wa sharrihi. So in terms of jotting notes down, as you mentioned, or I mentioned many times, one of the Salaf said, someone said it's a hadith according to Shaykh al-Bani, قَيِّدُ الْعِلْمِ بِالْكِتَابَةِ, engraved knowledge by way of writing. It's good to write the titles for the points that we're going through. So you may not be able to get all of the shuruh down, all of the explanations, but just write the titles down for every point. That will acquaint you with some familiar parts. And then maybe write a hadith or Quranic verse. But before we go, what are the three things Allah uses in bringing something into being? His knowledge, qudra, wa irada. These are the three things. Yeah? It comes by way of His knowledge, al-ilm, qudra, power, ability, wa irada, and His will. نعم جزاكم الله خير بارك الله فيكم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.